The day began with the aftermath of catastrophic flooding across Texas, a disaster already stretching emergency crews to their limits. But just as residents along the swollen rivers were beginning to take stock of their losses, another crisis quietly sparked along the Texas-Mexico border. Without warning, the governor ordered 6 major ports of entry to close. For thousands who rely on these crossings, it seemed abrupt and inexplicable. Only a select circle of federal and state officials knew the truth. Something had been discovered beneath the earth, something engineered, concealed, and deeply alarming. It was close to midnight when a group of CBP agents noticed a small irregularity in the terrain. At first, it looked like an ordinary depression, the kind created by water drainage or shifting soil. But a closer look revealed a disturbance far too deliberate to be natural. As they brushed away layers of loose dirt, they realized the ground was hiding an opening carved with precision. What lay beneath was not a minor hole or abandoned burrow. It was a constructed passageway, extending down and forward like the entrance to an underground corridor. Once agents descended far enough to see its true scale, the atmosphere changed instantly. This was no crude tunnel scraped out by shovels. It descended deep, pierced through limestone with smooth, reinforced edges, and stretched forward into darkness far beyond the beam of their flashlights. A quick scan showed ventilation tubing, secured wiring for lighting, and structural ribs along the walls. It was clear that whoever built this engineered it for heavy, repeated movement. The tunnel's entrance was hidden in plain sight. What appeared above ground to be a drainage outlet or maintenance hatch was nothing more than camouflage. Underground, the corridor extended toward the border like a buried highway. Tools, material remnants, and tire marks hinted at months, perhaps years, of uninterrupted work. Once federal officials saw the first images from inside the passage, the decision became immediate. Portions of the Texas border had to be shut down. Not tomorrow, not after more meetings, right now. Traffic was stopped, gates sealed, and enforcement units spread across ranchlands, service roads, and commercial zones. Even areas that seemed unrelated were locked down because investigators needed to understand whether this tunnel was part of a much larger network. For the public, the closures created confusion, but for authorities, the urgency was clear. A structure of this scale does not appear beneath one of the most monitored borders in the world without serious implications. The discovery raised uncomfortable questions about how such an operation could escape the notice of aerial surveillance, ground sensors, and years of routine patrols. Crews equipped with seismic detection gear and geotechnical instruments were brought in to scan the surrounding land, searching for additional voids, shafts, or chambers. Analysts quickly realized that this was not the work of amateurs. Engineering a tunnel deep through compact soil and stone requires expertise, machinery, and time. The presence of power lines and structural bracing indicated supply chains, coordinated labor, and a sophisticated system to keep the passage hidden from neighbors, construction inspectors, and law enforcement. No one could conclusively determine how much cargo or how many people may have passed through before it was discovered. By sunrise, border towns felt the effect. Traffic backed up for miles. Trucking companies were forced to reroute shipments. Families who crossed the border daily for work or school found themselves stranded on opposite sides. And on the ground, dozens of agencies were scrambling to secure a zone that had suddenly become an active national security site. As investigators pushed deeper into the tunnel, they faced a daunting reality. If one passage of this complexity existed undetected, there was no way to know how many others might be hidden beneath the vast miles of rugged border terrain. The discovery signaled a fundamental shift. Border threats were no longer limited to what could be seen. The ground itself had become part of the battlefield. The shutdown of a major section of the border reverberated through every layer of daily life. What people saw on the surface, patrol trucks blocking roads, agents redirecting traffic, drones hovering overhead, was only a fraction of what was unfolding behind the scenes. Beneath the dust and heat, teams of engineers and intelligence officers were trying to map the invisible world below. Every vibration, every hollow echo, every shift in soil density mattered. The border had become a giant diagnostic puzzle. The tunnel's existence forced authorities to question long-held assumptions. Border security had always centered on fences, cameras, checkpoints, and patrols. Now, suddenly, underground space had to be treated like an entirely separate frontier. The technology used for monitoring earthquakes, mining sites, and geological faults was being rushed to the scene. Fiber optic lines were deployed to detect movement under the earth. Portable ground-penetrating radar units scanned beneath ranch roads and warehouse lots. With each scan, officials realized how little they truly knew about what lay underfoot. On ranches near the restricted area, landowners awoke to find officers crossing their property lines with mounted sensors and survey vehicles crisscrossing open fields. Rumors spread quickly, some about additional tunnels, others about possible chambers or hidden storage sections. None of the officials would confirm details, but the increased presence of federal agents suggested that the discovery might be larger than a single corridor. For communities along the border, the psychological impact was just as profound as the logistical disruption. People began to look at their surroundings differently. A warehouse foundation, a drainage ditch, even a patch of uneven soil suddenly seemed suspicious. The idea that a hidden network could run beneath familiar neighborhoods brought a sense of unease. It challenged the belief that danger comes from outside. In this case, danger was literally below the surface. Economically, the ramifications were immediate. Supply chains that relied on rapid cross-border transit slowed to a crawl. Truck drivers sat idle in lines that stretched for miles. Retailers waiting for inventory faced costly delays. Factories dependent on materials from across the border paused operations. The closure showed how quickly a hidden threat could paralyze commerce, even without a single shot fired or confrontation at the surface. The political response was equally intense. Leaders at the state and federal levels demanded answers about how such a passage could exist undetected. Some pushed for more spending on border technology. Others called for stricter inspections of construction companies, utility access points, and private properties near the border. Meanwhile, security experts were warning that this kind of infrastructure could be used for far more than smuggling. Large tunnels can move weapons, bulk contraband, or in the worst scenarios, individuals who pose direct threats to national stability. Human trafficking advocates raised alarms as well. Underground passageways provide a dangerous and unmonitored route for moving vulnerable people across borders. Temperatures inside tunnels can rise sharply. Air may thin. Passageways can collapse without warning. For those forced or misled into underground travel, the risk is life-threatening. Authorities understood this, which was part of why the border was closed with such speed. Any delay might have allowed people or cargo to move through unseen. Investigators continued to study the tunnel's construction, searching for clues about who funded it, who engineered it, and how they managed to transport materials without being detected. The reinforced walls suggested knowledge of soil pressure and structural load. Ventilation tubing indicated planning for long-term use. Every detail reinforced the same unsettling conclusion: this was not improvised crime. This was infrastructure. As the shutdown extended into its second day, the mood across the region shifted from shock to unease. Border towns accustomed to constant movement now experienced an eerie quiet. The absence of cross-border noise, the rumble of trucks, the chatter of travelers, the rhythmic clatter of inspection booths, made the silence feel unnatural. Standing at the closed checkpoint gates, many realized that this event had changed the conversation about border security for good. It was no longer enough to worry about what came through the gates or over the fences. Now, authorities had to consider what could be traveling below. The discovery forced a reckoning. The land itself had become a contested arena, where secrecy and surveillance were locked in a silent duel. Even after the tunnel was sealed and the entrances guarded, the lingering uncertainty remained. Investigators could not yet say whether this was a lone passage or part of a larger system. And until they knew, the border closures were a stark reminder that the unseen can reshape an entire region. If you enjoyed this report, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more breaking updates. Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know what you think about the shutdown and the discovery beneath the Texas border.